So you just went to one of our major guitar resellers recently, and then you went to another couple.
Yep.
Similar experience abound.
Yeah.
Things were not looking very good.
It was a little...
Not many guitars on the walls.
There were guitars, they just weren't awesome guitars.
So it was a lower level of what used to be the
Right.
flagship
Right.
carrying places.
Yes.
Well, just give me the rundown. What was going on?
The biggest thing... Now, I went to this place to buy my son drumsticks, in case you were wondering. Because we're out of town. He's become obsessed with the drums. And I thought, well, you know, darn it, we'll go get some sticks and we'll look at the electric drum kits and we'll be those people who just bum around and my son makes noise on the drum kits. I've been on the other side of that enough that I have some credit built up, so it was fine. Luckily, there was no one there. that was the first thing.
So
it was
no customers?
No one.
Well, this must have been like, was it right in the early morning or?
No, it was like middle of the day on a Saturday. So 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock on a Saturday.
Well, so that's sort of like, that reminds me of like, Eric Garland, who wrote the sort of expose on the reseller here. Like, what's the name of this place?
A vintage 60s instrument. I mean,
yeah.
The reseller.
Well, we have to be careful. There's lawyers with prying eyes always.
That's true.
Yeah, so it's...
Derek will probably put the name in the thumbnail, so it's
I know, it doesn't matter. We can talk about it. We're just having fun. I like to have fun, see how well I can do. But no, Eric Garland wrote this great expose on, like, because he witnessed the same thing. He's like a financial analyst for like major industries, not this type of small, like...
He has like a real job.
Chump change stuff.
Yeah.
Like the musical instrument sales is chump change compared to like consumer electronics, compared to weapons, compared to oil, compared to all this stuff that he works on.
We think it's a thing.
It's
we get in our brain, but it's not.
Like
it's like the blip on the radar.
It's like the decimal points, the carryovers. But no, he noticed that same thing like years ago before the bankruptcy of said company, the first of many, and like wrote a thing on it, and then he was getting like threats and lawsuit threats and death threats and stuff and crazy. But then all that he predicted came true.
Yes,
and he's predicted more. That's another video that's coming down the road that we're still working on. But your witnessing was somewhat.
I was pretty
shocking.
Pretty. Because this is a location I'm pretty familiar with.
Did you used to work at this location?
I did. It is not
Nashville.
Not Nashville, but another one. And yeah, man. And I have to say, hats off to the one. There was literally like 2 guys working.
How is that possible?
I don't know, man.
It's like sort of pre-closing time, like the peak time.
Yeah, like should be a really busy time on a Saturday. And there were a couple guys over by like the teaching studio part. But obviously, they're not on the floor.
They're sort of wood whittling while they're just sort of sitting outside
just
waiting
hanging
for
out.
stuff.
Because I didn't see any students coming in and out either. But and I was there for a while. But the one you could tell one of the guys was new. One of the guys knew what was going on, and even a question. He even fielded a question about like a Floyd Rose part, amazingly. And I was like, wow,
dude's doing the job.
Smiling, being great. Tell he's a little frazzled, like trying to help the new guy, who was also trying, I think. But so this is not at all a like a rebuke on the actual.
No, but it's more
employees.
of a rebuke on the industry, like as far as like again, we've done some videos recently where we're talking about some of the major resellers of guitars, like the big 3. It's like Sweetwater Guitar Center and Thomann. Like when they did these massive orders and they cancel them, it really affects everything and it affects their bottom line too. They've had to lay off a ton of people.
Well, what we saw was boxes everywhere in the drum department, unpacked, and then just like stacks of stuff that I guess was a sale, probably for Labor Day, but hadn't been moved, hadn't really been cleaned up. The little, the little signs they make at Guitar Center that I used to have to put out, still kind of everywhere, still kind of like in the middle of maybe.
You mentioned the shop. Oh, darn, the cat's out of the bag.
Dang it.
Continue.
They knew. Everyone knew.
I read this.
But just never saw a person that worked there in the drum department.
Or were there any? There not really any other customers either.
I mean, they were like way less than 10, maybe 5 or 6.
Okay, let's
in the whole Guitar Center.
Okay.
Now, I'm not talking about the drum department. I'm talking about the whole Guitar Center. I could count 1, 2, 3, 4.
And like Sean and all of us, we were laughing. Like, I mean, even here, like on Saturdays, if it's just like 2 people, man, it can sometimes get out of hand.
Yeah.
You know, like we have a smaller showroom by a large shot, but it's very well stocked always. It's always really clean. It's
But I mean, it seemed like
the guitar strings are always new.
very few drumsticks.
We don't have any drumsticks.
We don't have drumsticks. I'm just saying in my experience. And I didn't look a ton of the other accessory stuff, but you know, things were spread out. So at first glance, there were a lot of guitars on the wall, but there were lots of empty spaces as well. And then the guitars up there were just your sort of really normal, mostly like made in Mexico kind of products. But I was pretty shocked. I expected a bit of a different experience.
Well, and I've talked to a few industry insiders on like the finance side and within the corporate structures of some of these companies, and I mean there is some writing on the wall leading towards similar negative trends with some of these, because it's weird because they had, you know, they filed for bankruptcy a few years ago, and then they came out of that, and then they refinanced, and then they considering an IPO after record profits during COVID.
Right.
Initial public offering, going public and selling shares in their company to raise capital, to AKA make money and expand. Because that's what these big businesses sort of do, as the goal is just to build more boxes, sell more things, and you know. And
I think what was crazy to me is I can remember a time, and this is a long time ago, you know, 10, 15 years ago, you know, going into guitar centers and just be like, oh, because I wasn't used to them, right? Like, especially when this particular location opened, walking in and being like, holy crap, like, look at all the gleaming rows and everything's clean and everything's great. And you just think this is the greatest thing ever. I can try everything. It's amazing. And then going to mom and pop shops and being maybe a little bit let down. But now I think it is all flip-flop. Now you go into the great indie stores who are selling online and you're like, wow, this is amazing.
And we usually get that reaction when folks come
we do.
in. You might come in one day, like when we did just get like a huge shipment at once, and we're like,
we got boxes
over. We're trying to get through it.
But we're actively working on it, which used to be the thing in a Guitar Center too.
We don't have a loading dock.
No, we do not. Well, that was what was great about, like you mentioned, the Nashville. You know, you do most of that in the warehouse, and then it's a giant machine. Everybody's working, but there's a huge workforce there. But yeah, it's really flipped as far as that overwhelming, like, oh, jaw-dropping sort of, wow, look at this.
Well, that's how all big box stores sort of go eventually. Like, I was working on an idea for a video of, and we might still do it, of like, 15 or 10 big box shops that will probably go bankrupt in the next couple of years. And there's a trend to them, because they have these platforms, these models of how they build it, and that you have to update your shop if it's not already a timeless looking place. If it's a great historic unit or building you're in, it's different, but you gotta continually update. Restaurants update, unless you're in this cool exposed brick, like, railroad type place and like a New York City vibe. But, retail, like slat wall things, and mom and pops have to too, or they die.
It's true.
Or unless they're just relying on the B&O and the lessons banner.
Well, and it used to be you would go into great mom and pop, or indies, and they would look like a mini big box place. They'd have the same slat wall and stuff, but now I don't think that's the case. You go into the great ones, and I
remember going to everybody knows I love Wildwood guitars.
Yep.
I remember the first time I went there. I flew out there a few times, and thank God my wife had work trips. It was such a good excuse. I flew out there, and I'd go hang out there for like 4 hours, and I wasn't annoying, so I'd just go in my closet and play guitar and leave everybody alone. No, I didn't want to bother them. But it was their showroom was underwhelming.
Right.
It was not like, it's not like, oh wow, it's like had the slat wall, and I had like it's sort of the typical camera, like the glass thing with like the pedals and stuff in it. Like, it was small, but every guitar on that slat wall was a custom shop, and this was just a few. And then they had I was like, where's the rest of your guitars? Like, it's in the warehouses out back. Just tell us what you want to play. And I had a list of serial numbers. Like, thank you that you did this. And they were so helpful. They just bring in 3 guitars at a time.
That's wild.
And I'd go into my little place and play. And they were really helpful, really nice. And I was playing in this little closet with like some brooms and a bucket in the corner. It wasn't nice. Then they built this amazing showroom.
Yeah.
Amazing. And then COVID happens, and now it's not open to the public anymore.
Like, don't worry about it.
But it's still amazing. So yeah, one day maybe I can go get special treatment. I mean,
the first place the last place I can in recent memory that I went and was just like, wow, was probably CME. CME is amazing.
That's a wow place. Yeah. That's we've been told, like, you guys like a little tiny CME,
like a little mini CME,
little baby
like
CME.
If CME had an extra spare bedroom.
We're the grandmother's cottage.
Yeah, that's right.
To the proper house.
But
no, I even like even hats off to like the weird ones too. Like Wilcutt's is like it's an old grocery store, but then like the little side behind the gas station secret lair. It's not pretty inside. It's just not good looking at all, but it's cool. And Chuck Levin's like just asked to go to the bathroom upstairs. It's like these labyrinths of old offices from like a 1980s thriller. It's cool. The basement's amazing. The shop is fun. And you might get a salsa dance lesson while you're there.
You never know.
Ask for Carlos.
You never know.
Or his wily son that is there every once in a while. Those boys can dance.
But I mean, like that place has a history, you know? I mean, Carter Vintage is cool when you walk in. You know what I mean? You got all the little counters and the shirts
Music
and the
Villa.
slides and stuff. And then
That
Music
place.
Villa is amazing.
And like the owner, Paul, like he's kind of like, he looks like a movie star too, so he's kind of dreamy.
Yeah.
So if you're like a single, 30s to 40-year-old lady that's on the prowl, guitar lover.
There you go.
50s, 20s, I don't know.
matter.
I'm not an ageist in either way. I don't care. Had younger girlfriends all over the place. I don't know how old my wife is. I don't ask. I don't want to know.
It's true. It's a mystery to this day.
Dream boats out there, though. Dream boats. Paul, guy's pretty. His hair's always impeccable.
It is. That is true.
He has cool jackets on a lot of times too, and it's in Bozeman.
I want to go to Bozeman.
We're
We're
gonna figure out a way to go to Bozeman.
Just go out there.
It's a work trip, honey. It's just Jonathan and I can go, and Derek.
We'll go out there. We'll pretend like we're in Yellowstone.
God.
We'll all wear hats. It's gonna be great.
I've met a new friend that's bought a guitar from us, and we're talking about some other ones, but he lives out there, and I gotta visit him at some point. It sounds like a lot of fun, and this guy has become. We just met on the phone, sort of like talking about guitars, and like. I don't say names ever.
Now you're pals.
But he's cool. He's funny. He's a total weirdo like us.
See?
And yeah, it was funny. We got to talk about like he understood my Duke Duke basketball talking that we were going in too deep. He got it. So cheers, hats off to that
Duke.
Whatever. I'm talking about the glory years of Christian Laettner, Bobby Hurley, all that time. I'm also a Chicago Bears fan of the Super Bowl shuffle period.
I'm just saying.
McMahon, Peyton, Perry.
When your college produced Michael Jordan, everything else just doesn't
that is amazing. That's like what UNC has, and I love Dean Smith too.
Yeah.
I could care less about the other coaches after that. It doesn't mean anything to me. I love Jimmy V, Dean Smith, and Coach K. I love those guys.
That was sort of like an amazing time, right? Like when
we owned the late '80s and early '90s there for a minute. And Jimmy V, God rest his soul, he was a great man. They were just killer. And Coach K, what he did with like those dudes on the court, an amazing coach.
Pretty wild, yeah.
But good. Back to Michael Jordan. I'm still going to put down. It doesn't matter what side you're on. You're wrong. He's the GOAT.
Yeah, that's true. That was a factual statement.
It doesn't matter. Well, this guy scored one more. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Cool. He's still the GOAT.
He's Michael Jordan.
He can literally fly.
People don't realize how amazing Larry Bird is.
It's just, I didn't realize how amazing it was until more recently. Because, it was like, are you Magic Johnson, you the Larry Bird guys? Like, because I used to play the game, when you did one-on-one, it was great. Terrible graphics. But then you look at what Larry Bird could do.
Watch some highlight reels of Larry Bird if you don't think he's great.
Go watch him. It doesn't make any sense.
And it's trash talking.
It's perfect.
It's amazing.
Because you're like, oh, what a nice white little guy. Oh, he's mean and horrible.
Brutal. A horrible savage man.
He's one of the Boston Celtics. They got to be such charm. Like, he's brutal.
Those dudes were brutal back
He would
then.
just tell you what he's going to do to you
game.
and just murder you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
God, it had to be so demoralizing.
I'm gonna score like 25 points this game. It's gonna all be on you defending.
Jordan's the same way. Yeah, Jordan took everything personal. I'm convinced the key to Jordan's success was he took everything personally.
Well, I watched this like sports like sort of counselor or something taught one recently too, and he's talking about like getting your kids into athletics, and this is useful for all of us because we have kids, and he said all the ones who become superstar and professional athletes and get like top tier college things and don't even become superstars. They don't start super young. They start a little bit later, most of them. It's around 12 is when they really find it. Yeah. Like when they really hone it, then they start putting the work in. It's not like you're grinding your kid at 6. Got it. Golf and tennis is a little different. But the team sports, that's usually where that lands out.
My dad used to talk about that, about, peaking too early, right? Like starting too early and burning out, and you hit your peak in like junior high or whatever. So
My sister worked her tail off, and she was like #1 in the state in tennis, like a scholarship, and she crushed it. But when she finished college, she put her racket down and didn't play for a decade or two, decade and a half. Yeah, it was just because she was burned out. And then she has a son who's now a top tennis star.
Wow. So there you go.
Crazy, like as a freaking 12-year-old or whatever. It's crazy, it's nuts. Like I used to be able to crush that kid in tennis, and like now
Not anymore. No. Not even.
I can barely return a shot. Yeah. It's like this 12-year-old just smoking me. I could beat him in a foot race when he was 11, and now it's game over. He's just like I don't even want to do it. I just know he'll crush me. Actually, I'm gonna do it.
Tennis is one of those games that like when somebody hits that, they start hitting those upper levels, and you think you're okay at it, and then you go play, and they just serve once, and you're like, oh.
I do hold close with him in ping pong, which is like really funny because it drives him nuts. He's like, how are you so good at this? My sister's like, how are you so good at ping pong? I'm like, I spent a lot of time at home alone in my bedroom. As a child, I have great hand-eye coordination. That's all I'll say.
I don't know. I think that you hit an age when you're a dad, ping pong just like
no, I was always good at it.
You. I was always pretty darn good at it
too. That's my thing.
We should play ping pong, you and I. We've never played ping pong. Right after we arm wrestle.
And I beat you in that all the time. And the better you are at ping pong, the better I get. Because I rise to the
You rise, right? You feel like
I beat everyone.
You cannot lose, yeah.
No, and I have fun with it. And I have enough skill to like, I try to wear you down. I want you to make that mistake.
He plays with his food. Huh?
You're gonna. That's cute. I was thinking, why would I be eating my food funny? Oh, so it's a pivoting economy, pivoting world right now. But it's I think it's all gonna be for the best. Everything's gonna be okay again. I'm a super optimist with it. No, I am. It is really. It's like I see great things coming from the manufacturers. I'm excited. It's gonna pivot how guitars are consumed.
Yeah.
And we hope all the cats that are making these retail boxes survive, keep crushing it, and can help it as much as possible, and then come and work with us one day.
I had a picture of cats building things.
God,
so that, like actual cats.
Wasn't that a nice little cheerleading at the end? We're going to go home now.
Yeah.
So I think we kind of reached the end.
I think we did.
Appreciate you joining us.
Dude.
And again, click like, subscribe if you don't mind.
Don't forget the bell.
It does help.
What would Larry Bird do?
God, what would Larry Bird do?
Ring that bell.
He would freaking just school all
From
of us.
the 3-point line.
God bless that strange, streaky looking white guy.